Hi everyone, my name is Colleen Dever and I will be discussing my paper topic for this class, which was Confucianism's legacy regarding domestic roles of women in Vietnam. A lot of religions have traditional beliefs that sometimes oppress certain groups of people, and in this case, Confucianism was oppressive towards women. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about what Confucianism is, how it oppressed women and what the expectations were for women in Vietnam, as well as feminism a little bit, and how times have changed and the importance as to why it changed. So, to start, Confucianism is more than just a religion, it's a way of life, and it was developed by Confucian in the 5th and 6th centuries. It focused on family values, it influenced education and the government, and it was just more about a way of living than focusing on religion. And it was also practiced or is practiced in Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, which I'll be discussing um, its involvement in Vietnam. And it also involved the 5 relationships, and the one relationship I will be discussing the most is a husband and wife relationship. So, Confucianism, it was centered around the male's superiority in the family. So, men were superior, women were inferior. Women were viewed as something connected to a male, so they were daughters, they were wives, and they were mothers. They were to obey their fathers before they were married, and then when they got married, they were supposed to obey their husbands, and then when they had children, they were to obey their children, particularly their sons, and cater to them. Um, they were not allowed to get married. If they widowed, it was viewed as disrespectful, and they would basically be shunned. In order to be a good wife, there were 4 requirements: skillful with domestic work, a pretty face, a gentle temperament, and to be soft spoken. And in Confucianism, obedience was key. So they had to obey the men in their lives, and not only that, when they got married, they no longer took care of their parents, they had to take care of their partner or husband's parents. Um, they were responsible for cooking and cleaning, caring for the husband and the children, and because of these domestic duties, they also lacked um, financial independence. They had domestic duties as a daughter, and then they had domestic duties as a wife when they were married. So there was no real gap in between to get a job and to gain their own financial independence and stability, because they were either being a daughter or then a wife and a mother. They were often not educated, which led to the lack of financial independence as well, because they couldn't get a job, even if they were allowed to, they couldn't get a job without an education anyway. So that was another factor of Confucianism and how it oppressed women. um, their husbands were also viewed superior in a way because they could have multiple wives, while women could only have one husband, because that was who they were meant to cater to. um, and society preferred male children. So the more like male children there are, is to continue the legacy of the name, and then wives or daughters were just meant to be raised to cater to those male children as they grew up and married off and paired off. So let's talk about feminism. Feminism is the belief of equality among the sexes. That means financial equality, economic equality, similar things, political equality, and educational equality. This is important because it's not an idea that women are viewed as superior, but equal, which is something that lacked in Vietnam during Confucianism times. Um, and it wasn't that women had to work, it was that women could choose if they wanted to work. So a woman could live her life as domestic and live her life doing domestic roles in the household, caring for her family, or she could enter the workforce, or she could do both. But it was important that the women in Vietnam could choose this, which was lacking due to Confucianism. So in the 18th century, Vietnam joined the feminist movement, and in 1986, it there was a policy implicated which allowed women to participate in the workforce outside of the home, which was very, very important and needed in this time. Confucianism itself was limiting the woman's freedom to choose. They were just expected to carry out these domestic roles and could not enter the workforce. It catered to this idea of the lack of self-independence, the lack of self-worth, the lack of financial independence, because they were always tied to a man and what he could bring into the family. She was just there to care for him, care for the children, care for the home. So this idea of feminism that's occurring in Vietnam at this time was a very big deal. So the legacy of Confucianism continued even as the feminist ideology was being brought into this time period. Although the legacy continued, it was forced to face modernization through communism. And communism was more on the side of gender equality, so it allowed for more opportunities of women. And during the time of communism, there was a decline in work in agriculture, which led to women being educated so they can get jobs outside of the home and provide for their family, which was great for women at this time because they were entering a new role in their life that wasn't attached to a man or to marriage. It was committed to gender, communism was committed to gender equality, but in order for there to be change, citizens had to take it upon themselves to change the way they lived. So that's why Confucianism was forced to modernize in a way, but people still held on to these ancient beliefs that women were to stay in the house and men were to work and women were to care for these men. So it was really up to individuals to approach this modernization and to allow a new sense or way of living into their lives in Vietnam. In 1930, there was an Equal Rights Act established, which allowed for equal rights among men and women in education, work, suffrage. They could now own property and divorce without any repercussions. And there was a Vietnam Women's Union, which helped to modernize Vietnam and into from the Confucian way of living into the communist way of living. And they started to be viewed as more equal, which I felt was very important, especially after so much time of oppression. So overall, Confucianism's ideology was stifling to women. It oppressed them. It gave them value only if they were attached or associated with male figures in their lives. And it also stifled their independence, self-independence, and financial independence, as well as their own self-worth because of this attachment, the value attached to male association. So communism, as though it's not often viewed as something good, it was good in this case because it helped women to become more equal, be viewed as more equal, have equal opportunities to have their own self-independence, financial independence, and have value outside of marriage, which I find as a feminist extremely important. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.